for the city halls, but a portion of it, the majority of it will go.
ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call this budget workshop to meeting. I'm going to explain. We've had a couple of changes. I apologize for starting a little bit late tonight. We're going to begin with our budget workshop. I know the published agenda says we're going to start with a special meeting first. We're going to start with our budget workshop. We may take a pause about halfway through when we get to a natural break, and we will adjourn the workshop. We'll open up the special commission meeting. We'll handle that business, and then we'll finish up the workshop as we go. So with that, I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda. I have a motion properly seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we will go on to our fiscal year budget review, which, Mike, you're going to take it away.
Monty seconded it.
That's right. We got you right there, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to introduce the budget workshop, and Dallas is going to take you through the presentation. As you know, this is our fifth or sixth workshop, Dallas? Sixth? Fifth or sixth workshop. And we consider this a recap. We feel like in our previous 5 workshops, the commission gave us very good direction, but each one of them was project or budget specific. This is our chance to pull it all together, show the commission what the total impact of their decision making is and our understanding of their decision. And we are going to use this information to build the preliminary budget, the final preliminary budget for next Monday night. Correct?
Tentative budget.
Yeah, the tentative budget, I said preliminary. The final tentative budget for Monday night for consideration by the City Commission. So we're going to try to touch on all the high points, big decision points in the workshop tonight, make sure that we clearly understand, and then hopefully come Monday night, it'll be very straightforward for the Commission as we go through the tentative budget. So with that, I'll let Dallas take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. Starting with our budget timeline, as the manager mentioned, on Monday night you'll have your first budget hearing, followed at the next City Commission meeting on the 27th by your second and final budget hearing. At those budget hearings, we will go through a long litany of ordinances and resolutions. It's a pretty structured process, and we'll provide you guys a script later this week that walks you through the process. But we'll be bringing that budget back based upon the direction that we've received so far and based upon the direction you guys give us tonight. So speaking of that direction, on this slide we tried to summarize all the direction that we've heard the Commission give us throughout the budget season this year. In terms of personnel, the Commission directed us to not pursue a compensation study this year, but instead use that money to provide a 2% cost of living adjustment to our employees. You also provided that we would do the minimum wage step-in with an inverse merit. That's a 5-year plan to get us to the $15 an hour minimum wage, but addresses compression by providing a flat dollar amount to certain employees, and then the ability to increase your merit in an inverse fashion to that flat dollar amount. We have 3 new FTEs in the budget. 2 of them are in your utilities department. 1 of them is in your planning department. We heard feedback through the budget process about implementing a tuition reimbursement program. We have funded that program. We do have 4 employees who have signed up for fall classes underneath that program. We also heard from our commission in our one-on-ones, particularly from Commissioner Clark, about the need to address the cost of our dependent insurance coverage for health insurance. Our family, child, spouse coverage is vastly unaffordable. There are a number of reasons for that. However, this year we had some good news. I typically budget 10 to 12% increase in health insurance costs every year. Typically we come in between 10 and 12%. Thankfully this year, due to not only the state of the economy, but also our employees being smart consumers of health insurance, our insurance rates actually came in at a 4% increase, which was great. That's about a $20,000 savings across the city from what we had budgeted. What we did was we took that $20,000 difference between what we had planned for and what the actual was, and we put it all towards dependent coverage. which has lowered the cost of our child coverage, spouse coverage, and family coverage. In family, it lowered it by $400 a month. For children, I believe it was $100 a month. It lowered it, and spouse, I believe, was $200 maybe. So it's still a good amount, but it does reduce it by quite a bit, making it a little bit more affordable for our employees.
That's awesome. I hope some people take advantage of that, because that's awesome.
We hope so. We looked at some of our peers in the area to see what their rates are. We're still not in the ballpark, but we're closer. We're closer, but we do offer a much higher level of health insurance than, say, a city of Gainesville that is more affordable but offers a lower benefit than we do.
Who do we have our insurance? Who do we have our insurance through?
Our health insurance is through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida.
And that's the best they can do for us?
Yeah, we do shop it every year, and we go back and negotiate. The average increase this year was 7%, so we're very happy with 4%. Usually, if we're in the single digits, we're pretty happy with the increase.
And next year, when it goes to double digits, what do you plan on doing then?
Mr. Mayor, like I mentioned, every year it's typically in the double digits, so that would not be out of the ordinary. We do routinely shop our insurance and go to bid for it. However, Blue Cross Blue Shield has routinely been the best insurance option available. There is always the option of providing the employees a less rich plan. Insurance doesn't cover as much.
Will the cost for dependent coverage increase?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the way the plan is structured, the whole plan increases by a percentage. So, for example, this year, the base plan for employee increased by 3.8%. So dependent, spouse, and family also increased by 3.8%.
What I'm saying is you won't have the $20,000 next year to put towards it. So will it increase, or are you going to be budgeting an extra $20,000 a year to cover it?
It would be an incremental increase. So the $20,000 next year, if we didn't increase it more, would just be 3% of $20,000. And we can always adjust it again next year. Part of our struggle this year is due to how much the insurance costs. We only have 3 of our employees who take any sort of dependent coverage. So after this open enrollment, which we're about to go into, we'll know how many more employees are going to sign up and what the cost will be in future years.
And there's no such thing as a city co-op to get all the cities together to get a better rate?
Mr. Mayor, federal law actually prohibits you from doing that, explicitly prohibits you from co-oping together for health insurance.
The administration that does.
They've yet to change that if they plan to. We have been working, FMPA looked into it, and the American Public Power Association looked into it, so they're working on something. A couple years ago, we talked to the city of Gainesville and Alachua County. Unfortunately, both of them are self-insured, and federal law prohibits us from doing it anyways.
All right, just curious.
Health insurance sucks. That's kind of my...
Rick, one thing on that, on the caveat, that insurance, can we get an update to see if anybody takes advantage of this lowering, and then if not, then we'll kind of know whether this is for not?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We're about to enter an open enrollment, and after we finish open enrollment, we can get you that information.
Also, when we do that, just between you and me, let's show how much we were able to improve the offering with the offset that you got.
Yeah, for example, I know
to show how much it reduced.
the family insurance was going to be $1,400 a month for the employee to pay. The city pays $600 and change, and we were able to reduce that to $1,000 a month, which is still quite a bit, but $1,000 is less than $1,400. And anecdotally, we have lost several employees due to them not being able to afford either spouse or child coverage.
And that, Dallas, that's with the plan tells you the 400 for the family or 100 per child. That's the Blue Cross Blue Shield reduces that rate. There's not a way to get a better rate for a child. There's no negotiation. In other words, that $400 that we took.
No, it's by group. So the group rate is this much.
Okay.
Right. So moving on from personnel, if there's no more
I got one
conversation.
more question. What's the employee number that would kick us into the next highest group? Because that's how you get the better deal, or you have more.
I believe it's 250.
We're a little bit.
We've
Little
been
bit
trying to
away
get
from
you to
that.
staff up.
Yeah,
Just a little way to go.
we're right on the cusp of not being a group now, because 50 is the number for group. And with the employees who either choose not to take our health insurance or whatever, we're always kind of iffy. It's got pluses and minuses. One of the pluses is that being a smaller group is that they can't ratchet up our health premiums, 50% just because we have 1 year with a bad claim rate. Being a small group, we pay $500,000 a year in health insurance. Well, one employee could very easily cost $500,000 in healthcare needs. But being a small group means that they have to look back over, I think, either 3 or 7 years to make that determination.
Okay.
So how much is, tell me again, how much is the cost to an employee for a dependent with this new plan?
For a spouse,
Spouse or child, is it different for each?
it's different between spouse, child, or family. Let me see, I've got the numbers here, so I don't tell you a lie. So with the new rates, a employee plus spouse is, for the employee, $681 per month. For an employee and a child, it's $488 per month. For family, it's $1,018 per month.
So you don't have like the employee's cost, and then if you add on the dependent?
Yes, sir. So
You add it
employees don't,
together.
the city covers employee coverage at 100%.
Okay,
So we contribute $636 for employee coverage.
okay,
For employee and spouse, the city contributes $833, with the employee contributing $681. For employee plus child, the city contributes $733, with the employee contributing $488. For family, the city contributes $1,018, with the employee contributing $1,018.
is that paid bi-weekly, or how is that, I mean, you see?
It's deducted from the employee's paycheck biweekly, based on 24 payrolls.
It costing them $681 bi-weekly,
No, sir, that's the monthly cost.
monthly cost?
So the biweekly would be, $340.
Half that.
340?
Welcome, Commissioner Mazon. Good, perfect timing. We've only made it through that first block of personnel, so we're just kind of reviewing previous commission direction to staff about things that we want to see in this tentative budget that we're reviewing tonight. So you haven't missed much. Thanks for joining us.
Do you want us to continue this slide, or do you want to have a
Yeah,
special?
let's
meeting?
finish up this slide and then we'll take a break.
Page 4, Commissioner Mazon. Page 4.
All right, the next major area we discussed throughout the budget process was major infrastructure or capital. The commission gave us direction to pursue the following projects: the downtown connector road on Seaboard or Larry King Drive, the Southwest 15th extension, City Hall expansion, the elevated storage tank or water tower, and the wastewater treatment plant expansion. So you'll see later on in the presentation how we've discussed funding those projects. In terms of revenues, the biggest one obviously is that there is no increase in property taxes. Millage rate is the same as it's been for the last 4 or 5 years. The City Commission provided us direction to implement impact fees. We're working with a consulting firm to develop impact fees and to bring them back to you. We hope to have a workshop in October of an educational nature to discuss impact fees with the commission and get your direction how you want to see those implemented.
At that point, we'll set the price.
No, sir. At that point, you'll discuss which impact fees you want to see them bring back. They'll do a study, and they'll bring back, here's the prices that you can justify, and then you'll set the price. There's a slight increase in your utility service charges. There was an increase in the fire assessment for the purchase of equipment. And then the commission gave us direction to bring back a funding plan for those general fund capital items, which is later on in the slide deck. That concludes the slide.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, I know we've started kind of late. We have gone ahead and introduced our budget workshop. This may be our final budget review of the fiscal year 2021-22 budget workshop. We also postponed, we have a special commission meeting on. We postponed that for a few minutes till we could have a quorum here. So we are going to adjourn the budget workshop momentarily so that we can go ahead and get our special commission meeting out of the way, because not all the staff members that are here tonight need to be here for the budget workshop, and we want to respect their family time. So I'm going to call a pause on the budget workshop. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to call the special commission meeting to order. And Amy, we're still live, correct? Okay, so let's call this special commission meeting of September 7th, 2001 to order. I'm going to begin with an approval of the agenda. I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published. I have a motion from Commissioner Maison. I have a second from Commissioner Clark. Any questions, comments on the agenda as it was published from the dais? Seeing none, do we have any public questions or comments on the agenda that was published? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We have 2 items on tonight's special commission meeting. Before we get to those, I just want to say I understand that there has been some public comment about our elected officials and their ability to attend all of the workshops and meetings that we've been having. I just want to remind folks that we have asked of our staff and our elected officials a tremendous amount this summer. We've had our regular budget workshops, which at one point in time I unilaterally broke into 2 because I thought it was too much. So there's a whole other meeting that was on me. We've done our visioning session, which has been 3 or 4 different workshops. The last one was 6 hours. And we've had all of our regular commission meetings on top of that. So I think that, you know, we have a strange world that we're living in right now, and everyone has family and everyone is doing the best that they can. So I would ask folks, you know, if you have questions about elected officials who can't be here for something, you know, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I will tell you as much as I'm allowed to tell you about that. But I can tell you that every single one of the commissioners is committed to being a commissioner, is committed to the city of Newberry. They're also committed to their families, and they're committed to keeping folks safe. So we had this is another budget workshop and another special meeting that was added on to get our CRA. So it's yet one more meeting. We've asked of everybody. We're way past you know, what was in your job description this summer in particular. So I just want to take a moment to lay that out there, because I think, you know, I've seen some unfair comments recently, and I know how hard these guys work and how much that they want to be here. And with that, I will move on to our first agenda item. We're not going to move up to the dais because we've got all the microphones and everything down here. So we'll just stay down here. And our first item is approval of the revised interlocal agreement between the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners and the Newberry Commission creating the Community Redevelopment Agency. Mike, are you going to take that away?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners approved our CRA plan, which was a huge milestone for the city. They approved it conditioned upon amendment to the interlocal agreement, and then they authorized the chair, the chair to execute proposed amendments to the interlocal agreement. Brian's going to walk you through this. This is a pretty straightforward presentation and a straightforward request by the City Commission, but Brian has expertise in this area, and he can share with you what the proposed changes are.
Brian, don't think bad of me because you're behind me. I'm watching and I'm listening to everything you say. Go ahead.
No problem, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So, as Mike said, this is a very straightforward adjustment. There are very minimal revisions to the interlocal agreement. Basically, the County Commission approved the interlocal agreement back in 2019. And then later, on August 24th, they approved the revised interlocal agreement. In a nutshell, the revised interlocal agreement, instead of starting at the date that was specified in the previous agreement, the base year is set at 2019, meaning that the valuation of the properties within the CRA district are set as a base in 2019, and then the increase in value in that district area then incrementally over time is what that gets based against, is that 2019. And they also decided, rather than to wait until 2022 for our first installment to the TIF, to move that to 2021. So we will actually receive our first installment from both the county and from the city's budget in 2021. Moves us up a little bit, and so it means that the first 20-year increment will end in 2040 as opposed to 2021, which was presented to you before when we were in discussion about the CRA. And so they voted in favor of that and approved it. So now all we need is for the Newberry City Commission to also approve the revised interlocal agreement, and we can move forward and create the actual trust fund, which is the next step.
Okay. Do we have a resolution we need to read for this, or is this just the interlocal?
It's no resolution,
straight
it's
vote.
just authorizing the mayor to execute the amended interlocal agreement would be the recommended action. There you go.
There, thank you. Okay, guys, this is the action we requested the BOCC to take. So do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any public questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Item 2. And we're going to clap. We're going to clap. Go ahead. One more thing. Go ahead.
The baby is born. We have a CRA.
All right.
The next, Mr. Mayor, is the ordinance which authorizes the creation of the Tax Increment Financing Trust Fund.
Mr. Foles, can you read that ordinance on into the record for us?
I will, am I coming across?
No, you're fine. As long as it's green.
I'll put it.
You sometimes just got to push extra hard.
There we go, now I'm green. Okay, it's ordinance number 2021-45, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, creating the Newberry Community Redevelopment Trust Fund, providing for authority and trustorship, providing for administration, providing for tax increments, determining tax increments amount, determining appropriation obligation, calculating tax increments, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for repeal, and providing for an effective date. The appropriate motion would be to pass ordinance number 2021-45 on first reading.
Thank
By
you,
title
sir.
only.
We appreciate that. All right, Brian, take it away.
All right, Mr. Mayor, once again, the CRA, as you know, is a dependent special district. We won't go through all that again, but we have basically 3 steps in the creation of the CRA. Adopting the funding necessity, you all did that several months ago, and develop and adopt the community redevelopment plan, which was also accomplished several months ago and approved jointly by the county commission. Third and final step, create the redevelopment trust fund. That's where the money from the tax increment goes every year. And so that's what this ordinance does for you. Our finance director will be creating the account once you approve it. So the recommended action is to approve the ordinance 2021-45, authorizing the creation of the CRA TIF trust fund.
Thank you, Brian. All right, have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Mazon. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the public have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously now. Woo! Okay.
Now we have a second reading, which is scheduled for September 26th.
We'll clap again, don't worry.
Yeah, just so you know, that will conclude it all, and then we'll get on about business.
City Manager, you have any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, do you have any comments?
I have no comments.
we appreciate seeing you out here, but we will not be offended if you sneak out the back door here in a moment.
I may sneak out front.
Yeah. I have no comments. Commissioner, have any comments?
You know,
Okay.
you know his famous stories the other night, I think about all the time, he said he was a young lawyer, I suppose, wasn't it, Mr. Folds, when you had Capone?
That's
Back when Capone come through Vanville?
Just about that time. I think it was actually the son, rather. I researched that a little more. I think he left in about 46.
Do we have any citizen comments? Seeing none, our special meeting is adjourned. Don't go anywhere. Any staff free to leave. Thank you all for being here for that historic moment. We appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go straight back to our budget workshop, which we just finished the introduction of. So we will call this back into order for the workshop. And Dallas, take us to slide 2.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So one of the directions that the City Commission gave us was to bring back a funding plan to fund the projects that are in next year's budget, primarily the City Hall expansion, Southwest 15th expansion, and the downtown connectivity roads. So what we've done is we've cobbled together a variety of different funding sources, and we're going to move those into our capital improvement fund. Those sources being your law enforcement funds, water public service tax, solid waste fee increase, impact fees, as well as some general fund balance and surplus. So for fiscal year 2022, we propose a slight increase in solid waste rates up to $18 a month for residential, which is still the lowest rates in our area. Increase in the water public service tax to 6%. Using $90,000 of the law enforcement funds. Those are the funds that, due to the negotiations with the sheriff's office, were freed up in this year's budget. It's about $135,000. We plan on using $90,000 of those to advance those projects, and $45,000 of it to re-roof the historic power plant.
Monty?
If we are going to lease that property out, why would we spend the $45,000 to redo the roof if they're going to go in and redo the whole?
We haven't decided to lease the property out. We've decided to RFP it, but we haven't gone through the process yet. So you guys could get all the RFPs or sell it, either one, right? So you guys could reject all the proposals. You can say, well, we don't like that. And so one way or the other, we need to fix the roof. And if we do fix the roof, then we'll back that money out when we work out the deal. We'll say, well, we just put this money in.
And Mr. Mayor, also, we anticipate, no, that's exactly correct, but we anticipate as we go through the RFP process, even if the commission says, we love it, let's do it, it'd probably be 4 to 6 months before we have someone under contract to do it, and there's a sense of urgency to fixing the roof. We'd like to get her fixed sooner than later. There is water every time it rains going against untreated wood. And we feel like that for a minimal investment of $45,000 that we would get back under the purchase price for the property, that staff recommends that we proceed with getting the roof done ASAP.
We're also using $35,000 in millage, that's funds in this year's budget, into the capital improvement fund, and then pulling $175,000 out of your fund balance and your general fund into the capital improvement fund. That is money above and beyond the reserve threshold that the commission has established. So that money is going to flow into the capital improvement fund, and as I mentioned, it'll go towards your City Hall expansion project, your Southwest 15th extension, and your downtown connectivity roads. There's also a little bit of money identified in there for the impact fee study. The majority of that impact fee study is in my department's budget in the current fiscal year. It was money that was identified for the road assessment. However, I've put a little bit of money in the capital improvement fund just to cover it in case those fees come back higher than what is in my current budget.
This is just to get through this year's budget.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is just to get through this year's budget. Most of this money will be for engineering or drawings or
Engineering.
something like that to get us even started.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This money will go to engineering and drawings, help solidify budget cost and numbers, and help us while we identify funding sources and get those impact fees in place. So nothing in this year's budget ties your hands. If we go through the impact fee study process and the commission decides you don't want to pursue it, or we get to the debt process and you don't want to pursue it, you can make that decision. This is just the first step in those projects.
Commissioner Farnsworth, go back one more.
So, Dallas, do we have an idea of how much of an increase we're getting in property taxes this year over last year?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Off the top of my head, it was $300,000.
Seems like the more we get, the more we spend, don't we?
We like to say it's expensive to run a government, run a city. For fiscal year '23 and beyond, so that would be not next year, but the year after that, the plan would be that we would continue to fund the debt service that would be taken on for those projects. That would be one of our first years with debt service. We would continue to fund that with the water service tax, the increase in the solid waste, and the impact fees. Starting in fiscal year '23, we would hope that we'd have those impact fees in place. But as mentioned, we're not going to go out and issue debt until we have those funding sources established. We're not going to issue debt until we have the revenue to pay that debt. So you'll see throughout the course of this year, the commission desires to follow this path. We'll be bringing you forward information on impact fees, and in your budget hearings, you'll have the public service tax adoption as well as the increase in your solid waste fees. So going into those specific revenues a little bit more, as you can see, going forward, we estimate that we'll be bringing in just enough to make those annual debt service payments going forward. It should be mentioned that, solid waste and water service tax, as well as impact fees, should increase every year in the future as we continue to see growth. So what is the net impact to your residents? The net impact on the general fund side is a little less than, it's about $4.40 a month. What we tried to do is go through the different increases, the different revenue sources, and tie them to projects that made sense for the residents paying for those projects. So obviously the entire city pays for that fire assessment, and that fire assessment is going to go directly towards the Quint as required by law. Solid waste, again, the entire city pays that, as well as your commercial and your tax exempt entities pay that. So the majority of that's going to go to pay for City Hall and for downtown roads. The thought being that City Hall benefits all of your residents. The impact fees and the water service tax, obviously impact fees are derived from residents who are putting a new impact onto your roads, so it's going to go straight to roads. The water service tax, that's primarily your urban customers in the downtown area. So we tied that to the downtown road projects with a thought process of those customers are paying the fee, but they're going to see the most benefit from the downtown roads and from the Southwest 15th.
And are we getting coffee delivered? Is that?
So the thought process there
We're doing.
was just, obviously any impact, any increase is an impact to our residents, and we don't want to downplay it. However, for the cost of a tall frappe mocha from our local coffee shop, you can have a Quint and some roads and a City Hall and a downtown connector.
One of those a month.
One a month.
I'm going to steal this slide to take to my students, because I see them walk in every day with a big gulp from the Jiffy Store and a big pack of hot Cheetos, and I know they spent $5,
Did you know that could pay for a road?
And did you know that could pay for? Yeah, they do it every day.
Yeah,
Every day.
this is a month.
I also want to say, I just want to say well done to staff here, because this commission spent an awful lot of time talking about who is paying for what, to make sure that we're being fair for all of these funding sources, that if I live in the rural area and I'm not paying downtown, I'm not in the urban downtown, shouldn't be paying for something that I'm not getting that service. This one slide, I'm sure, took an awful lot of work, but that's an impressive way to form that information and give it to us, and to see exactly who's paying and what they're getting for paying. So I think this slide here, we should share this with our residents, because that sums it up very, very nicely. So thank you for listening to the commission and hearing that concern, to make sure that we can say to people, well, the urban service tax is paying for downtown services, and we can show that. So, thank you. Are we getting coffee delivered? Where were we on the coffee? Is that?
It's right
is that-
over there.
Oh, okay.
We've cut it out of the budget for roads.
We were trying to build a road.
Yeah, I'm trying to build a road. All right, next slide.
All right, so on the utility side, as we mentioned, we do anticipate a decrease in the power cost adjustment on the electric side, offset with an increase in rates for a net impact of 50 cents a month to your residential customers. The commission adopted, or gave us direction to do a 4% water increase. Again, that still keeps us as the lowest water service provider in the area. And in our wastewater rates, it's a 3% increase. Again, that keeps us as one of the most affordable in the area. I think we're the second lowest. And again, the majority of that increase in the wastewater side is due to our permit renewals that we're required to do through the Department of Environmental Protection and some new regulations that we're having to meet. So the total net impact on the utility customer for an average customer is $3.53 a month. The total across for a customer who lives in the downtown area and receives both our utilities is $7.93 a month, which is less than the cost of a monthly Netflix subscription or a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke per month.
You gonna say that one too, Mayor?
You got me thinking. That Big Mac's looking pretty good.
Going into ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, we've had some really good news since the last meeting. The Department of Emergency Management has, that one. The Department of Environment and Emergency Management has recalculated the funding. In fact, the commission will see this on your consent agenda on Monday night to enter into those agreements with the state. But they recalculated our funding from $2.6 million to $3.1 million. So we gained a little more than $500,000 more in our funding. We continue to plan to use the majority of that funding, about $200,000, on infrastructure, roads. Yes, sir. I think it's 2.1 million if you added it. No, it's 2 million. So the 900,000, the 500,000, 600,000 for the water main and force main projects, the elevated storage tank, and the utility portion of the downtown connector roads. We also propose to use about $400,000 for broadband connectivity for our municipal buildings. That's rebuilding and extending the fiber ring that the city currently has to connect the city facilities. Our current fiber ring is ancient and doesn't really work. As our planning director will tell you, if it rains, he loses fiber connection to the Little Schoolhouse still, I think. Intermittently. The fire department has a similar issue, although the fire department's not on our fiber ring. This ring would replace what we currently have, as well as extend it to the fire station and to the East and Newberry Sports Complex. The thought being we could also maybe pick up MLK in the wastewater treatment plant. It would eliminate us having separate internet connections at each of those buildings where we're paying for service at those buildings. It would also eliminate the need for us to have multiple firewalls, multiple IT components at those buildings. So it would save us a little bit of money in the long run.
Dallas, can you say a little bit? What is a little bit it's going to save us? Because we're going to pay for this outright. It'll be done over with. What we're outlaying monthly or annually, what will that cost savings be?
From a cable standpoint, from monthly service fees we're paying for broadband cable, maybe $10,000 to $15,000 a year for those. In terms of IT infrastructure and the licenses and everything I need for our cybersecurity, probably another $10,000 a year.
So we're talking 20 to 25,000.
Yes, sir.
Explain to me, I don't understand the broadband situation for the city of Newberry. I mean, it's not like I've got Cox cable for my broadband. What does the city have? I don't understand it.
I think that's the problem. Nobody understands what the broadband situation in Newberry is.
The city currently has Cox Cable as our provider, and we have a fiber network that connects this building, my building, the building across the street, the yard, and Little Red Schoolhouse.
When you say fiber connection,
City.
It's just for city.
It's the city network.
stuff.
Right, but they're running lines between here and.
Correct. Yeah, we already have a portion of it, but it's outdated and, you know, was kind of cobbled together. So we'd be replacing that as well as extending it to pick up the wastewater, or not, well, the wastewater plant, but the fire station in Easton, because they each currently have to have their own separate connection, and that it's unreliable. It's very slow. At Easton, we actually have to have a separate server that runs their resources out there instead of them connecting to our main server here. So we're duplicating a lot of infrastructure.
I'm like the planning and zoning board every time, or planning and zoning, every time that it rains or something, I lose my internet connection. So I think we must be on the same freaking line.
Yeah, we suffer the same thing, but if we connect all of our facilities together with broadband, we'll take delivery one time at City Hall, and all those services will go out. All that broadband connectivity will go to our buildings through one connection. So we'll pay one bill to Cox or GRU or whoever our broadband service provider is. The way we are now, we receive it at City Hall, and that serves the annex, the yard, and Little Red Schoolhouse. But the wastewater plant, the fire station, MLK, and Easton, and any other city facilities have to receive it as an independent customer, and they pay a separate bill for that, just like you and the neighbor next door. So we will eliminate those separate bills. We'll take delivery at City Hall and then distribute it to the broadband availability to all of our other buildings. It's a project. We looked into it at least 5 years ago. We've laid it out. We brought back the city commission cost estimates. It's been in every budget that we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 years, but it's never risen to a level of priority on the commission.
$400,000.
To get us there with the ARPA money, we thought it was a good time to at least make the recommendation. It's still the commission's decision, but we felt like it was one of those that's worthy. It's a worthy project that we never may find the funding source for it otherwise.
And I'd add, in addition to the saving of the money, from a cybersecurity standpoint, limiting the number of entry points you can have is always good. So currently we have entry points at City Hall, at the fire station, at Easton, at the wastewater plant, and we have to protect each of those with lots of firewalls and lots of protection.
Right.
So if we can eliminate them down and have one single point of entry that we can really beef up, it is always helpful from a cybersecurity standpoint.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. Do we have any kind of filters on our system to keep people from spending hours on YouTube or anything like that?
We don't block any specific web. I mean, we have filters that say you can't go to, let's say, after hours websites. But, you know, we had blocked YouTube for a little bit, and then we got lots of complaints of, like, our facilities department being like, well, we use YouTube to look up how to fix things. We do get, and we can't block social media because we run social media. Part of my reports I get every month do flag if Mike is spending 30 hours a week on YouTube, it's going to flag it and say, hey, you may want to look into this.
Yeah.
You know, this person's using a lot of bandwidth on this website.
And I keep getting spam from Jordan Marlowe on mine.
We can absolutely block that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's such a better way to go about it, because, you know, the school board blocks everything, and there's so much that's educational on YouTube, so much that's and if you start blocking everything, it's a never ending.
Correct.
Pretty soon you've blocked up. Is there anything in this that's going to help our residents get broadband? Is there feeders that Cox or some other provider could feed into when we expend this?
So the thought process would be, GRU is already in the city. It feeds the schools and the library. Bringing it further into Newberry, into downtown, eventually we'll open it up to our residents. The other thought is if the city builds a fiber network, there is the potential that we could use it for dark fiber, which is where we lease the strands of our fiber out to other entities to use it. They keep it's totally separated from our own fiber network. That would typically be larger commercial entities that would be interested in it. So there's definitely an economic development
So moving
incentive
forward
there.
with this, we'll give the commission some options in the future.
That is correct.
Potentially.
Correct.
Okay.
Because what we're putting in will have far more capacity than we need. That's just the nature of fiber. So it is potentially possible in the future to do exactly what he said, is lease the capacity, available capacity on our fiber ring to another service provider, or Cox or GRU, and they could make benefit of it to residential customers or commercial customers or the like.
You might need to revisit that contract we have with CoOp regarding their services here in the city. I felt they had a pretty much ironclad contract that no one else could come into the city. And
I think the contract was us. We couldn't. We had a contract with them, not.
Mr. Mayor, my understanding, and I haven't read the contract in a while, is it primarily speaks to cable television, because internet wasn't really contemplated at the time. Also, utility franchise, internet franchises are regulated at the state level and by the FCC? The FCC. The next project is the historic fire truck display. And then, of course, we are applying for grants for the majority of these projects with our grant writers to either see if we can, double or triple our money, or at least get the most bang for our buck out of these funds. With all those projects identified, there is $630,000 remaining of the ARPA funds that staff has set aside for discussion. If the commission has any other projects, obviously we could add it to these projects, or keep it segregated while we go through the next year or two. See if
Dallas,
anything comes up.
Could you bring the commission back, because I don't think we have it tonight, but we've randomly talked about a few projects. Some of them are up here that were kind of, if we ever had the money, this would be a really nice addition to the city. Can you bring back, and I can help you generate some of those ideas over the past 3 or 4 years that would qualify, that this funding would qualify? I don't want to put something in front of the commission that we can't spend that money on. But if we could pick a few, these are things that we've heard in the past. Can any of this money be spent on sidewalks?
Potentially.
Okay. 'Cause I think that there's a couple of sidewalks that are enormously expensive for us to accomplish that I would love to be able to check off of our list. If we've, I know one was $110,000, one was $90,000. Sidewalks are just ridiculously expensive. So it would be great. It'd be great to be able to utilize some of this money to do a couple of those that we've heard about.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. And to that point, we're getting this money in 2 tranches, which means we get 1.5-ish million this year and 1.5-ish next year.
Yeah.
So we will need to have the discussion of ARPA again for fiscal year 2023's budget. So we don't need to make those decisions now. We can bring it back in springtime for
Well,
next
sometimes
year's
that's
budget
better,
process.
because the world always looks different a year from now. So I think it's nice to get some of these things done that we've never had the money to do. And then maybe we want to just sort of kind of simmer on it, get these projects done, bring it back. But I think if it's possible to do those sidewalks, that would be great, because there's a couple of them
Is this
that.
the one over by the school, one of those?
Well, the one from Newberry Place to the middle school, we've got a deal on that one, right? So
When's it gonna move forward?
The
have a plan?
school board approved the easement and the land conveyance about an hour and a half ago at their meeting. We're waiting on an easement from the Newberry Place HOA. It was promised about 45 days ago, but they're clearly working at the speed of government. I'll circle back with them, but our contractors are lined up. I think Jamie said we're going to start moving fence tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so
And then there's one in Countryway that's enormously expensive because we don't have the swells are in the way, or we don't have the ease. We have to work through
I
that.
think Commissioner Coleman brought a project to me that I think he's probably going
He's
to
gonna-
share with the commission in the next 6 weeks that I thought went a long ways towards addressing some of those hurdles.
And that's what, if sometimes the world changes in a meeting. Commissioner
What
Maison?
about the, over there off of, Third Ave, over here, 66, that goes back to that road that's, it's, Lime Rock, Tharp, remember?
Right.
You wanted to pave it all, well, you got Third Ave and you got Third Place. Are they planning on putting?
Is that the horseshoe, the whole horseshoe
Yes,
there?
it's a horseshoe, but there's a lot of kids and younger kids that walk that and they hit the grass.
Yeah.
Are they gonna plan on putting it? You got customers complaining about sidewalks being.
I've never had a complaint for a sidewalk back in there, so.
It's Brittany
Oaks?
Oaks.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll have to look at it and see. So,
Well, yeah.
I know the one in Newberry Place, I know the one in Country Way.
Well, let's use the money to do great things instead of just doing frivolous projects. Let's do something
Right.
that's benefits.
Now, we're gonna have to spend the money, we're gonna have to spend that money eventually anyway. So we'll get some things, and that's been our philosophy with wild spaces, public places. We got these projects, we know we're gonna do them anyway. Let's use this as a funding source to get it done. So all these
I got a
sidewalks.
I got a question, Mr. Jones. So, like a sidewalk, like the pavement, what's the difference? Because with chip seal, it's weight, right? It's with weight. Weight is the reason you go with an asphalt over chip seal, right?
Yes.
So if you have a sidewalk, like over there going to Easton, right? Over there at Easton, and that whole strip is like chip seal, correct?
I thought it was paved.
Or is that paved?
It's paid.
Is that paved?
Were you talking about the sidewalk?
Yeah, it's like, it stretches all the way out to Easton.
The path at
Is
Lower
that
Fort
chip
is
seal
chip
or is
seal.
that, you sure that's?
Or asphalt.
The sidewalk.
The path at Lost Fort is asphalt.
asphalt.
The sidewalk going to Easton is concrete.
Okay.
It's 5-foot wide concrete, and some of Jamie's got way more expertise than me, but there are standards in sidewalk construction that we wouldn't violate otherwise. As soon as someone trips, a gentleman by the name of Morgan and Morgan are always very quick to find us. Jamie, can you provide some insight?
Yes, there's width requirements, there's ADA accessibility requirements to be able to have passing and areas for wheelchairs to pull off. There's quite a few requirements as to the installation of sidewalks. If they're within X amount of feet of the driving surface, they have to be elevated at least 6 inches above the driving surface. That's where you typically see them in the curb and gutter where they're raised at least 6 inches. That increases the construction cost significantly. That's one of the reasons we requested to get the additional area from the school and from Newberry Place where we could move the sidewalk further away from the travel lane and actually reduce the cost to construct.
I mean, and in that case, the Newberry Place one, that's going to be a significant cost reduction, because if it hadn't got moved away from the swell, we'd have to put in handrail almost the entire length of the project, and that's $25, $30 a foot just for the handrails. This is as expensive as the sidewalk is.
Okay, so we're in agreement though that we're gonna move forward with this. We'll put the 630 kind of to the side. You'll come back to us with some thoughts of things that we've been talking about that we could use this money for that are eligible, and then we'll hash that out, maybe keeping it, on the back burner as we move forward with these projects to accommodate anything that the life throws at us.
This money, the ARPA money, the money projects we got right here. When we say we're gonna spend, the 600,000 on the downtown connector road, that's actually pavement on the ground?
No.
That's,
That's utilities on the road. That's utilities on the ground.
Yeah, we could,
Then we had the
we
other
wanted to just
money
take the whole
where we borrowed from the
3.1, but we're not allowed. You can-
Right.
For just
so
specific
this is
things.
this is all mainly water, wastewater, and our broadband, no, real, 900,000.
Yeah, the ARPA very clearly states that you can spend, there's like 6 things you can spend money on, and some of them are pretty nebulous, but it very clearly says you can spend this money on water, wastewater, and broadband infrastructure. So that's why we're spending the majority of it on water, wastewater, and broadband infrastructure. The other portion of the road is the debt service.
The
and
debt service we're undertaking.
And the impact fees we're looking at.
Jimmy, you trying to weigh in? Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, one good thing about having that other 630,000 not allocated at this point in time, it'll give you a chance to actually design, bid, and let these projects, construction and supply costs and material costs are extremely volatile. There's no telling where certain things may be in the next 12 to 18 months.
Commissioner Farnsworth and then Commissioner
Okay.
Clark.
I don't see any reason to spend $70,000 on a fire truck display. I don't know where that came in or who
It's a
thought that.
cool idea.
Yeah, it's a cool idea to renovate the,
Yeah. What are we gonna do with a Rio?
well, you can park at your house, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, clearly, you know, it's one of those things that has always been like a, hey, it'd be nice to be able to keep this, but, you know, the commission's certainly cut it, you know, it's not gonna hurt my feelings, but it's kind of like the utility billing, you know, what are we gonna do with this? I mean, I think it's had its time as a parade vehicle, you know, every time we pull it out, it breaks down, we spend all this money trying to keep it up to run. I just want to display it so we can see it, we can keep it, the history alive, but I don't know how else to do that. Otherwise, it's just gonna sit in a garage.
Mr. Mayor, I think that 70,000 is generous, but we did that on purpose because of the volatility of the construction price. I think we've determined it's about 600 square feet. We think that means that it'll be in the $45,000 or $50,000 range to construct. We have some buffer in there. But I don't believe that its time as a parade vehicle is done, especially if we can move it to a dedicated facility. The problem is the only place we have to store it right now is out of sight, out of mind, and it's hard to dedicate the resources to keep it running. The fire department, we think if it finds a home at the fire department, we'll be able to do a better job of maintaining it. It'll be more visible. It will not be out of sight, out of mind. It'll be right in everyone's sight. That said, it is something that's nice for the city to have. It's not a necessity like a water plant is or some of the other things. So, you know, we put these down as candidate projects. I heard early on that the commission asked us to, Mike, would you identify projects that we want to do, but we don't think we'll ever find an independent funding source for it. So the Broadband and that Rio truck display were the first two that came to my mind that met that criteria. We've talked about them for years, but if you push comes to shove with priority spending, we probably won't do it.
And we're applying for grants for all the projects, so this
Could be
could be even
a match.
Correct.
match or less than what we,
Correct.
all right.
Maybe we can do a volunteer commission build day and we'll all get out there with our hammers.
We can give you guys the fire department boots. You know how they go out to the intersection?
How many square feet?
At best I recall, it's around 600 square feet.
Reminds me of the William
I think it'll come
Thomas
in way under that.
first display over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Over 600 square feet for 70? Man, we could build this thing ourselves. Can we hire one?
That's what I'm saying. The commission goes out there as a volunteer, right?
Hey, the ARPA money's there, we gotta spend it on something. I'm not against it.
if we build it for $20,000, we'll return $50,000 to the ARPA fund
And
and
we use it for
advise the
something else.
commission.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Is the Rio, was it one of our first trucks? Was it our first truck?
It was not. It was never in the Newberry fleet. It was never in
Not
there
one of our
for.
trucks?
Did we never use it at all? I thought the
Not
chief
for
said we
firefighting.
use it all.
No.
Not for fighting fires?
We will have a second Clint. That we have used, that could be.
It's a vintage 1928. I think we started our fire department in the 70s.
Yeah, but we had a volunteer before that.
We did.
Right.
Correct. You're right.
And that's,
We didn't have that truck.
No? I swear Rodriguez stood in front of us at one time, and it was like, we used it at one time. I mean, the other thing, I feel the same way about this as I feel about the building. If it's just gonna sit there and rot, well, let's put it on the market and sell it, and get rid of it, right? Let's just make a decision. I think it's cool. I think it would be nice sitting in front of the fire department.
This is
This is just a workshop, right, just a workshop. I mean, we could put it out there and say, okay, if you get a matching grant, it's a project we want to move forward with. I mean, I absolutely agree, this is always and will forever be a project that gets nixed until the government just throws money and says, hey, you gotta go do something with it.
It's cool, the Black 57 Chevy, put it on display, because it doesn't much meaning.
It doesn't have, how many parades have you ridden on that, and that has no meaning for you? No, you pushed. I pushed that truck up and down the road.
About half of one, but he's been in 10.
Started 10, finished 1.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification. One of the commissioners mentioned that we don't have to decide on this tonight. If you don't give me direction otherwise, this will be in your budget. That'll be on Monday night's agenda for approval. However, this is above the manager's purchasing threshold. So when we go out to bid and bring back bids, you would have the opportunity then to say yes or no. But if I don't hear direction otherwise, I will be including this in your budget.
But it'll
for
be in
Monday
the
night.
budget.
It'll be in the budget,
And then
but
you
it's part
can-
of the ARPA funding.
Right, part of the ARPA funding,
Right.
and you can pull it out
You
if
can
you just
pull it
got
out
$70,000 more.
Down the road here before we actually pull the trigger.
Right.
Yeah, we'll if it's in the budget, we'll proceed with the project and we'll bring it back before we execute contracts. I just wanted to make sure it was understood. It will be in the budget
To
unless.
say, no, we don't want to do that. And then you'll have $700,000 left in ARPA money to figure out some other, which is why I think it's important to, let's bring back that list of projects that we have kicked around, but never elevate themselves because they're just too easy to nix, right? And then we'll see, and maybe this just falls off naturally because something else is, we think, well, that's more important, or that would make the town prettier or beautified, something. Are we good to go? Next slide? Next slide.
All right, the next slide is this thing called the Newberry CRA. So before tonight, we did not have a CRA, so this is the first time the commission's ever seen a CRA budget.
Together that really quickly, Dallas.
Yeah, I was working on it while you guys were voting on it. So on Monday night, there will be a CRA board meeting to adopt the CRA budget. Given that this is our first year, we're taking some pretty wide swaths at it. Our first year's funding is just shy of $17,000, $8,400 from ourselves, $8,400 from the county. We plan about $1,000 in overhead. That's consistent with your other funds to pay for, general fund expenses. We have in there a placeholder of $7,500 for a facade grant program. The thought process being up to $2,500 per grant. We could give 3 grants away this year to downtown businesses to upgrade the exterior of their business. And then we have $8,000 in there in contract/other services. Right now, we don't have a lot of detail on what those would be. Some of the thought process was pressure washing services or long-term planning services, landscaping services, something along those lines, but we're putting that money in contract services as a placeholder, which brings your total expenses to $16,700, so $98 fund balance at the end of the year.
And Dallas, we're just gonna let this sit and build. We don't have to.
Well, we would plan on spending the $7,500 and the $8,200 next year. State law does have some pretty stringent requirements on how you can let money sit and build.
Right.
Our thought process is in our first year, especially, we want to do some things that do have an impact in the downtown that show what the CRA is doing. That's why we're thinking facade grants to some of our local businesses and then those contract services.
Can we match these ourselves? Because I'm thinking you don't make a whole lot of impact with $16,000.
Yeah, I mean, the city can spend, well.
Can we match
To
with
initiate.
ARPA money? Historic beautification, historic preservation?
The CRA
Depends what you do.
The CRA can can have an impact on private buildings, like with a facade grant. General fund dollars could not, ARPA funds could not. So you could say, might match the 16,000 that's available, we'll spend that all on private property, and you can match with city dollars to do sidewalks and street beautification. And it doesn't have to be this at all. The thought process is, let's get out the gate with something that makes a difference.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
I constantly hear, why don't we pressure wash the buildings on Main Street? They look terrible. And the general answer is we don't own them. They're not ours. We're not allowed to spend tax dollars on that, but we could spend CRA dollars on that.
And we picked the $7,500 for the facade grant based off of what High Springs and Alachua are doing. They do between $25,000 and $5,000 grants. So we picked the $7,500 that we think we could do maybe 3 this year, and that would give us a good start. Obviously, we'd have to bring back the program and the process to the commission, well, I'm sorry, not to the commission, to the CRA board, for the CRA board's approval, and then those grants would come back for the CRA board's approval as well.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, so on the facade, so the numbers here are basically just kind of a pie in the sky. If we need 10,000 for facades instead of 7,500, we can do that. You just got to
You'd have
go
to,
down.
yeah, I mean, you'd have to take it out of, you can't go more than 16,700.
Well, I understand, but
Yeah.
we can shift the money. There's 16,000 total, so if we had 4 apply and we didn't use the other contract services for 8,200, we shift that around.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And next year, fiscal year 2023, this number is going to be much, much bigger. We've already got, because these numbers are based off of last year's numbers. The CRA is always a year behind. So we already know what next year's numbers will be, and they're 90,000 plus. So in fiscal year 2023, we'll have a lot more money to
I'm
spend.
with you getting out of the gate, but I'm just saying that this,
And
we're
maybe,
not tied to those 2 numbers. We're tied to 16,000.
correct.
No worries.
Okay. And at some point, staff is going to come to the CRA board and discuss bonding this money as a debt service payment so that we can do a bigger project at one time that hopefully then stimulates downtown economic growth and allows the CRA to prosper much more than our anticipated amounts.
Can we use any of this money for paving of our roads?
Yeah.
Yes. Caveat being, you cannot use CRA money for any project that was identified in the city's budget. So because we've identified those projects in our budget, we'd have to remove them from our budget, and then, is it 3 years? You have to wait 3 years before the CRA, because the goal is you don't want to supplement, you don't want to, supplement city money for CRA money. It's supposed to be an add-on.
But we're gonna get those other ones paved anyway. We talked about piecemeal, give them a mile
Right.
here, half mile there.
What the CRA could do is, for example, if we decided to pave one of these roads over here, the CRA could pay for enhancements to that road that the city typically wanted, lighting, sidewalk, those sorts of upgrades.
There you go.
All right.
Awesome.
So like I said, this will come back as a separate resolution at the CRA board meeting after our meeting next
Brian?
Monday.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that as the plan was being developed, the CRA plan, we did look at the capital improvements list, and we, of course, didn't put anything in there that was on the CIP. So I think, these little small segments in the downtown area do not believe we have on our CIP, and so those could be done, and that was included in the CRA plan that passed. So there are certain segments of roads that are unpaved in the downtown area that could be paved with the CRA funds.
Okay.
It's my anticipation that we would program in road enhancement programs in within the CRA. So we have road enhancement programs in the city limits, but they don't specifically call out the district. So then at that point, you're running 2 paving programs, one funded through the CRA and one funded through general fund, targeting 2 different areas. Now you're getting twice as much mileage. I don't think that will be the bulk of your CRA dollars, but I think that would at least be something that staff presents, because I think that's a good way to get some mileage. Another thing too with that kind of mileage is that a lot of your CRA is going after economic development, but it's intended to get after blight. So you have the residential areas within your CRA that feel like, well, you're doing a lot for the businesses over there on Main Street, but you're doing nothing for the residential neighborhoods. And by saying, no, we're going to spend X percent of our dollars, whether it's 10 or 20% of our dollars on these street enhancements or drainage enhancements within the CRA, but they're not necessarily focused on economic development. They're just focused on redevelopment. I think we'll get some traction. But those are, it's kind of a anticipating, visioning down the road of what we'll present when we're flush with cash in a CRA and not dealing with, well, how are we going to spend $16,000?
And as I mentioned, in 2023, we'll have a lot more revenue, and that's when we can start those conversations about debt service, because then you'll have enough money to make debt service payments that actually result in some real money.
Correct.
And
Okay.
that is my last slide.
Any questions? So just to recap, guys, on the conclusion of our 6th budget workshop,
Yes, sir.
we're going to go into voting on the budget. So I know that this year has been rocky in terms of being able to make and attend all the budget workshops and those kinds of things. If there's any point that you're not comfortable with, anything that you want to go back and watch the tape, Amy will help you find that video. It's on YouTube. You can watch all of them. So if you missed one, you can watch that. But we have to adopt a budget by the end of this month or the apocalypse happens. So anything that is making anybody uncomfortable, it is much, much better to speak now or forever hold your peace than it is to wait till we get to that budget and then vote no, and everybody's wondering, well, where did that come from, right? So, things like the fire department thing, going back into ARPA, that's no problem. You can stay in the budget now, and then when it comes back, you can pull it then. It just rolls back into the ARPA money, right? So please reach out to me, reach out to Mike, go back, watch any of those meetings. But once we start those budget, we're going to be reading a long script that's pre-programmed out. We've talked about all these projects in great detail over the last 3 or 4 months. So, anything you got, anything you're worried about, we can handle it now. Once we get to the budget, it's going to start getting a little tight.
This seems to be like one of the most intense budget hearings I've been through.
It is. This is trial by fire for Coney. And it is, if this was, the continuation budget is pretty straightforward. How do we ever finally move the ball on some of these things we've talked about for years? And you guys are doing a great job about how do we advance some of these projects that have been sitting on the back burner. But in order to do that, we wanted to vet these projects and have some serious conversation about them. So we've, normally we have 4 budget workshops, I think. This year, we're on 6. In the middle of the visioning process and all that kind of stuff as well. So it has been an intense budget season, and we really dug deep to figure out how to move forward on these things. So, Commissioner Clark?
Mr. Mayor, we've talked about a lot of stuff. I know we've agreed and disagreed, but we've all come to some great things. I don't know that we've taken out a lot. I will say holding the millage rate down was good. I know we went up on a few things that probably are going to make certain people unhappy, but it ain't a lot of money. It's nickels and dimes, but that still increases. Nickels and dimes takes people's money. But I will say that as so far, I do believe we've done a great job. I just say here to the staff, we've been eyeball to eyeball with everybody, that this thing, when it comes down, we understand that we can make this debt service, and if we can't, these big projects will, to me, will go.
Right.
If there is something that comes back and says that this impact fees
It's not going to work
don't
out.
work or do not, we can't use this money, I'm just saying, I'm not willing to take on $8 million and not be, and then next year we got to stress, even though we're going to save $25,000, I hope, annually, now we got to worry about where to find another $100,000.
Right.
So I just would say that if staff, please have it in mind that if we can pay the bills and we can keep our taxes down, I'm good for what we've done.
And I would be in agreement. I think everybody here is in agreement with that. We have to know how we're going to pay the debt service. A lot of this rides on the impact fees. And again, that's the big hurdle that, probably should have been passed you know, 2-3 decades ago, right?
Yeah.
But the speed with which we're growing, you know, if we can get this now, that will be, it'll be huge for the future of Newberry, so.
Depends on your city employees reading things before you.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so,
How
see,
long before we have a final ruling on the impact?
impact 6 months?
Still 6 months? 6 months?
We're planning
About 2 weeks ago.
on sometime in October, having an educational workshop with the commission, with the impact fee consultant, who will, you know, discuss what impact fees are, what you can use them for, and then work with the commission to decide, well, what kind of impact fees do you want to go look at? Then they'll go do the study and bring it back for the commission to make a decision on what impact fees you want to implement.
That was only 2 weeks ago, Monty. It just feels like it was 2 months ago.
So that's like, so you about 6 months out. So are there any subdivisions that are not gonna include that impact fee in 6 months?
I think
They
that's
were gonna
not until
miss?
the plat, right?
Well, it's everything that's.
Yeah, it's every building permit that's pulled, and we're pulling on average 10, 12 building permits a month.
So the
So we're
neighborhoods are there, but you do it by the building permit.
Yeah.
Correct.
And, you know, if you remember that map that we have that has the different colors for in progress, in the zoning progress, I mean, the big ones that are coming haven't even started yet. So 6 months is plenty enough time to get this in before those larger impacts are having place.
If a project comes before us, if a project comes before us, can we delay it until we get the, word on the impact fees?
I mean, I don't think we have any project in the pipeline that we wouldn't be able to have the impact fees ahead of time, but.
We don't have any new developments. I could envision Norfleet, Countryway Town Center bringing a plat
phase.
or two, a phase. And some of those homes might be exempt from franchise fees within 6 months. It's been taking them about a year to build out a phase. I could imagine Avalon Woods bringing a phase or two forward in the next 6 months, but that's about it. I don't think anybody else is far enough along to get a plat, because they got to be pulling the building permits. Just getting the plat approved doesn't help them. If a bunch of people rushed through and got their plats approved, wouldn't help them. It's the building permit application process that they need to get into to avoid cap charges or impact fees.
There's also state law provides that once the commission adopts those impact fees, there's a 90-day cooling down period. So once you adopt them, they don't get charged for 90 days. So we would anticipate that would be a very busy 90 days for our planning and building departments, because every developer is going to try and rush to get building permits before
Yeah.
those impact fees go into
I mean,
place.
that's what I'm thinking, so, I didn't get my question answered. Can we deny them
The building
the
permit?
building, or not the building permit?
The capital improvement, you saying deny like,
If they bring me a plat, do we have to approve it, or can we deny it?
that?
I think that you could put a moratorium on something like that, but I think politically it would be crushing.
I think in all fairness, what we're embarking on here is a 100-year vision of where we need to be. There's going to be a few houses that
We're gonna miss
get
some of
in, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, no one's going to look back and say, well, if y'all had done it 6 months earlier, you would have gotten 20 more houses, right? And, you know, when you look at that map and you've got 2,400 houses coming to the city of Newberry over the next 20 years, right? That's where we need to have our focus. You know, a few are going to slip through while the process is working out, but what you guys are bravely taking on right now is not necessarily for us, it's for a commission a decade from
What we
now.
are doing today, Mr. Mayor, what we are doing is thinking about how to pay the debt service.
Right.
For money we're gonna borrow that potentially is gonna go forward to the next guys.
Absolutely.
And they're gonna have to deal with it.
And
So-
the next guys are going to have continuing tension
Yeah.
from all of this growth as well, and you guys are going to give the next group the funding mechanism to continue to pay to ease those tensions as people continue to come
We don't
to
want to
us.
hamstring the future of the city based on borrowing
Right.
$8 million.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say, it's very similar, we've mentioned it before, to where this commission would be if we didn't have development fees in your water and wastewater system. A commission a long time ago was forward-thinking enough to implement those, and without those, we would be, Monty was Commissioner Farnsworth was forward-thinking enough to implement those. But without those, our water wastewater system would be in a lot of, not jeopardy, but it'd be in a hard place.
So if somebody pulls a permit, a building permit, how long do they have to start with the building? 6 months. 6 months?
But they can get an extension.
Of course.
Yeah.
We are development enablers. It would be very hard to get us to try to disable development this time. And I think the community is appreciative of that. The more I talk to people, the more feedback I get that, you know what, I thought the process was going to be a lot tougher than it was. You guys really helped me out. I just had a guy call me last week and said, cannot tell you how helpful. And he specifically said, Brian, Wendy, and Janine were helping me get through this process. I've done it in 100 other cities, and they throw roadblocks at me, and all you guys did was help me.
They were helpful to the developer, and probably getting good feedback from them, but I'm not getting good feedback from the citizens. That's my thing.
Well, whatever citizens are unhappy, we welcome all feedback so that if there's an issue, we can resolve it. The number one issue I find with the average citizen is they lack the familiarity with what's going on. Pulling a building permit has a certain level of complexity that
I think you're talking about the growth.
The development themselves.
The growth.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is always going to be a source of tension. You can't grow as fast as we've been growing without hearing from the older residents what's going on. But we can't go and hire all of our upper management staff and say we want to be business friendly, we want to grow, we want to create economic opportunity, and then just say, all right, I mean, we've made employee changes on people who couldn't get on board with our vision for the future. And so it'd be pretty hard to go back. And I think we've had lots of presentations over the course of this summer that, I know it's hard to get out of 15th and from 7:20 to 7:45 in the morning, and I know that Newberry Road is backed up. And so I get all of those tensions, but when we look at our capacity and our water treatment, when we look at our road capacity, when we look at the plans that you guys are talking about right now, those are all the kinds of things that are going to help and address those concerns. When the two-way pairs hopefully start in 2024, which seems like a long time from now, but it's right around the corner in this world, that's so, and residents don't see all of this work that you guys are doing. They don't understand that you are thinking about those things, and we have the capacity. I mean, every time I read that comment where y'all aren't thinking about, y'all should have thought about that ahead of time. I know that that's not true. You guys have thought about that, but we didn't either have a funding source. We didn't want to put it on the old residents, right? The old residents of Newberry, they shouldn't have to pay because all these new people have come in, right? So everyone needs to pay their fair share, right, of who's causing the tension. But the two-way pairs, the connection roads that we're talking about, the foresight on the water plant, y'all's foresight on the impact fees, all of those are the structural things that we have to put in place to be able to address when someone says, you guys are growing too fast, you don't have any idea what you're doing. You haven't even thought about that, right? No, we've sat through hours and hours of meetings thinking about how to address that problem.
Well, I can tell you this, being from Newberry, owning a store in Jonesville, Mr. Mayor, back in the 80s, Jonesville was cornfields. The train has left the station.
Yeah.
So I'm telling, there's no stopping the growth. It's coming. There's that many people moving to Florida. Newberry is going to grow or be left behind. But I can tell you this, the people make the town.
Right.
The town does not make the people. So people want to live in a good town, it's up to them to be good to people.
Yeah.
So we understand that he's from here. I am not a born resident, but I am from here. I moved here when I was about that big. So, but it's the people that make this town. So that's,
Agreed.
but it's coming. We just need more commissioners. Huh?
Did you own Cape Spring too, out
No, we own Sheffield's Meat Market.
there? Oh,
Back when your daddy had the tire shop. Y'all had Lucky Seven, brother, all them
okay. You
days.
had the Sheffield meat market there
They were old Rosie's.
at the old store.
Yep. And right by the catch when it was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That's a nice little walk down memory lane. Yeah. All right.
I love
Staff, fine.
I love Newberry.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to, one comment on budget. And
Mr. Manager,
I just
we'll move
wanted,
to comments, so Mr. Manager.
I wanted to speak to what Commissioner Clark just said, and I want to speak to it. We recognize that what we're proposing is ambitious and requires a lot of trust from the commission and the community. And I'll just tell you, on our watch, the folks that are in this room, your staff, I don't ever see us getting complacent with cost, ever seeing 5 guys standing around a hole watching one guy dig. All the things that we see and have disdain for in government in terms of not caring about our spending. I work with a bunch of tightwads is the way it is, and I have to encourage them to move something forward because it feels too expensive. Yeah, but our public expects us to get it done. So I just want you to hear it from your team that we understand the trust you put into us, and we are not about to lose your respect or that trust over becoming complacent or making bad decisions. We want to make Newberry great, and we want you guys to be proud of us while we're doing it.
And we're like you're doing it. It is.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manager, Madam Clerk, I'm a little bit crooked. Do you have any
That's
comments?
okay. Manager,
I got it.
Oh, you weren't done with your comments?
That was
Right.
wrapping up the budget
Hang on, that was
workshop.
off. He still got his 3 pages of
I'm
comments.
sorry.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor. That was wrapping up the budget workshop. If we're ready for just general comments.
Yep.
The city attorney's office has sent an email. We'll get it forwarded. I think you guys got it today, but we'll get it on your calendars this week. On November the 18th at 4 o'clock, they're going to offer ethics training for city commission, commissioners and managers. This is required by the state. You have to have 4 hours of ethics training annually. So he provides it. It's not the only source of it, but it's a good one.
November 14th.
November the 18th at 4 p.m. And we'll send out a calendar invite for everybody. Mr. Mayor, I want to just...
Food is good as his.
It's good food, and there's a good network of people there. There's representatives from all the cities, so we can kind of compare notes. Last week, our Recreation Director, Travis Parker, was asked to present at the Florida Recreation Association's annual conference on social media, the beneficial use of social media. And feedback I got, which wasn't directly from Travis, was that Tampa, Miami-Dade, Lakeland was coming in and saying, we don't do any of this. How do you do all that? How many staff do you have that does this? And so we are a leader in our public offering, in our recreation, well, actually in all citywide, but I just want to say that we are recognized around the state as being that good. And I don't, if you're not running in my circle, you may not get that kind of feedback, but our marketing, our social media marketing is peerless within the state of Florida. Lime Rock roads and grading on unpaved roads. We have had a bunch of rain, and we got a bunch of rough roads, but we are ordering loads and loads of lime rock. We will spend the entire city budget, or lime rock budget this year. We have a couple hundred loads of rock left to get down this year. We're focused on Southwest 30, but Jamie's been taking me out. Everywhere we're getting it down, it's making a big difference, and if the community and the commission be patient, this enhancement program that y'all put in place last year is making a big difference.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We have about 50 loads left to put out in the next 2 days, which will conclude all of the lime rock that you budgeted for this year. The majority of that's been on 30th Avenue this year. Last year was Holder Grade and a portion of Watermelon Pond and 30th Avenue West. But we are trying to crown the roads and maintain them in this rainy weather. With the staffing levels we have, we're doing the best we can, and if the citizens will be patient, we will get them straightened back out.
And a reminder, we're going on about 16 months now with about half of our labor force. We have really been down in that particular group. Mr. Mayor, there's a tropical disturbance in the Gulf that if it grows, it's going to be on us in a hurry. So just be aware that we're keeping an eye on it, and we'll make sure that we're prepared. We've commenced construction work at Little Red Schoolhouse, so pardon our dust, but we're doing the office renovations. We're moving the museum upstairs and doing some interior renovations. So we think that's 90 to 120 days to complete that work. That's our hope. And Mr. Mayor, we've also commenced work at the municipal building. We've started painting in the municipal building. We think that's about 30 days worth of work. And last is city clerk's item is that Florida City Government Week is October the 18th through the 24th this year. We'll get it on your calendar. Judy always does a great job of planning activities with our team for our community, so we'll make sure we're rolling out what all of those events are going to look like. The flyer looks like this, and just we included for your handout. In addition to great social media, we do a great employee newsletter. It's very vibrant, tells a good story, and I just got you a copy of this month's newsletter so you can kind of see the kind of information that we get out there for our staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, did you give him that because he had the microphone?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
All right. Commission, Mr. Farnsworth, you got any comments?
No, sir.
No? Commissioner Mazon?
Oh, I was going to seniority.
Okay. Commissioner Clark, you got any comments?
I'd like to say God bless America, God bless my Marine Corps, and God be with the ones seriously that are wounded and are striving right now for their life, and bless all the families that have lost their Marines, corpsmen, and a soldier. So,
Thank you for that, Commissioner.
I think we're good.
All right. Couple of reminders. One, the Student Government Association of Newberry High School is putting up a 9/11 memorial on the football field after the football game on Friday. The football field will be open all day on September 11th on Saturday, so anyone from the public who wants to go in, reflect. We're not going to do an event because it's COVID world, so we're just going to allow folks to go in, view the memorial, but they are going to put up 2,997 flags on the football field to represent the 2,997 people who perished, although I read an article today that they discovered 2 new victims. So I invite everybody to come out to the football field for that on Saturday. The American Legion Parade, September 25th. They would love to have a lot of folks, a lot of elected officials there. So if you need a ride, have a ride. We'll work with the fire department to make sure that we offer something for the commission to get on. And if you could let us know you're coming, that would be great. That way we make sure we have an appropriate vehicle. And I think the Legion has some antique cars, so if you'd rather ride an antique car, Chris Torrance has that antique truck that we can ride in like we did last time. That's the 25th. So September 11th is this Saturday. That's Memorial. September 25th is 2 weeks from now. And then, I was going to chime in on Mike's comment about the level of trust in this community. Commissioner Farnsworth has been in this setup on that dais when there's 100 angry people in the chamber. I've sat on that dais when there's 100 angry people. And I don't think any of these issues, I have not gauged anything in our community that is approaching any level of that kind of discontent. Our residents will let us know when they do not like the direction that we are going. That has never been an issue. That's never been a problem. And that's always a good gauge for us to know if there's nobody in the chamber. Well, one way to read that is people are trusting what you're doing, they like the direction that you're going, and they don't feel the need to leave their couch and come up here and redirect us in a different direction. So I would take that, it's gonna happen eventually, but all of these projects, people seem like they're very, very ready for these kinds of things. They wish we'd started it a year or two ago, And that concludes my comments. Citizen comments. Ms. Peggy? You want to be a citizen?
I'm delighted. Thank you.
We have one citizen comment of delight. We like it. I want to get that in on the record. Dallas?
I just want to remind the commission, I don't know if you saw my email, but our insurance company is requiring that we implement two-factor authentication. That'll take effect on all of your emails on Thursday.
Was that the book you sent us?
That was the book I sent you. I also printed you a copy of the book.
Okay.
It seems way worse than it really is. I've already had it put on my phone. But if on Thursday your phone blows up and you can't use it anymore, please give me a call or give our IT company a call.
That would be the email, our email address on our phone, right?
Yeah, any city resources, primarily your email. If you access it on your phone, on your computer, anywhere, it's going to start requiring that text message authentication. But it's only once every 90 days. So.
All right. And then if you didn't see the text message from Pastor Rocky, the DCC's anniversary is this weekend. And they would love to have elected officials there. They have two services, one at 9 a.m. and one at 11 a.m. If you'll just text Pastor Rocky back, let him know which one you're going to be at, he'll be very appreciative. All right. If there are no other comments, we are